Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back into a world of flickering oil lamps, heavy purple drapes, and the soft, rhythmic hum of the ancient Mediterranean night. Imagine yourself leaning back against a pile of plush, embroidered cushions as the warm Italian breeze carries the faint scent of crushed mint and roasted pine nuts across a polished marble courtyard. We are peeling back the layers of Hollywood myth to explore what high society Roman parties were actually like. Far beneath the sensationalized whispers of endless wild orgies and golden plates. It was a world of strict social rules, bizarre culinary choices, and very specific bedtime rituals. And honestly, you probably wouldn't survive a single week living there if you tried to navigate it with a modern mindset. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you want to share where you are listening from, drop your city and local time in the comments below. I always love seeing how far these nightly journeys travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing on a smooth limestone walkway just as the fierce afternoon sun begins its slow descent behind the Seven Hills. The sky is turning a deep, bruised shade of plum, and the intense heat that baked the city all day is finally giving way to a gentle, cooling draft from the Tiber. You aren't wearing your usual comfortable clothes. Instead, your feet are strapped into simple leather sandals, and you are wrapped in yards of fine, unbleached wool that feels slightly heavy, but surprisingly comforting against your skin. The sounds of the city are beginning to shift. The loud, chaotic shouting of street vendors selling chickpeas and fried fish is fading, replaced by the rhythmic clop of donkey hooves pulling carts of olive oil into the market squares for the night shift. Historians still debate whether the ancient Romans actually preferred the chaotic noise of the daytime or the eerie, shadowy stillness of their nights, but right now the atmosphere feels thick with anticipation. You are on your way to an exclusive evening gathering at the home of a wealthy patrician, a place where business deals are struck, political careers are ruined, and people spend an exorbitant amount of time discussing the optimal way to roast a dormouse. As you walk, you notice how the shadows stretch long across the massive stone arches, and the air smells like a complex mixture of burning wood, expensive perfumes, and the sharp tang of the city's open drains. It is a sensory paradox that defines Roman life. To your right, a small shrine to the household gods is illuminated by a single sputtering clay lamp, its tiny flame dancing against the rough brickwork. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the steady rhythm of your own footsteps ground you in this ancient evening. The pressure of your modern schedule doesn't exist here. There are no buzzing smartphones, no urgent emails, and no strict digital clocks ticking away the seconds. Time is measured by the natural movement of the shadows and the gradual cooling of the stone walls beneath your hands. You are moving toward a private sanctuary of luxury, away from the crowded insula where the common citizens are currently boiling their meager dinners of grain porridge. You can hear the faint, melodic plucking of a stringed instrument somewhere in the distance, a sound that seems to float effortlessly over the terracotta rooftops. It is an invitation to slow down, to let go of the tension in your shoulders, and to prepare your mind for a very different kind of social experience. The wealthy elite of Rome didn't throw parties just for fun. Every single gathering was a carefully choreographed theatrical performance designed to show off wealth, status, and artistic taste. Yet, despite the grandeur, there is an underlying simplicity to the evening that is deeply soothing. The light is soft, the music is repetitive and hypnotic, and the conversations are designed to flow as smoothly as the watered-down wine that is currently being prepared in massive silver mixing bowls. You take one last look at the darkening sky, watching the first stars blink into existence above the grand columns of the Forum, and you prepare to step into a hidden world of ancient hospitality. The stone walkway beneath your sandals grows cooler now as the twilight deepens into a rich, velvety dark. You are deep within the aristocratic heart of the city, moving past towering stone walls that hide the sprawling villas of the ultra-wealthy from the chaotic, narrow alleys of the common folk. In ancient Rome, Privacy was the ultimate luxury, and these massive windowless outer walls acted like shields against the noise, the smoke, and the occasional runaway ox cart. Walking through these nocturnal streets feels like navigating an intricate labyrinth designed to disorient you, but the faint, sweet aroma of burning cedarwood and expensive balsam oil acts as your guide, drifting over the high brick walls of your destination. You can hear the muffled laughter of early arrivals echoing from inside, a sound that is soft, rhythmic, and strangely comforting against the quiet backdrop of the Roman night. As you approach the heavy oak entrance of the villa, you notice two torches flickering inside iron brackets on either side of the doorway, casting long, dancing shadows across the cobblestones. This isn't just a casual weekend hangout. You are about to step into a high-stakes arena of social positioning where even the way you clear your throat could be interpreted as a political statement. Historians still debate whether the intense social anxiety of the Roman elite actually prevented them from enjoying these lavish dinners, or if the constant threat of public embarrassment was simply part of the thrill. You take a moment to adjust the heavy folds of your dinner tunic, smoothing down the fabric and letting the familiar weight of the wool ground you. The air out here is crisp, carrying a subtle hint of salt from the distant sea, mingled with the omnipresent smell of charcoal smoke from thousands of domestic hearths cooking dinner across the city. A slave dressed in a spotless white tunic steps out from the shadows of the doorway, his eyes quickly scanning your attire to ensure you meet the strict dress code of the evening. In this world, you couldn't just rock up to a fancy dinner party in your everyday street clothes unless you wanted to be banished to the furthest, draftiest corner of the room to eat leftover cabbage. The servant bows low, his movements silent and practiced, and gestures for you to enter the long, dimly lit corridor known as the fauces. The transition from the cool, dark exterior into the warm glow of the villa is immediate and enveloping. The floor beneath your feet changes from rough street cobblestones to smooth, meticulously laid mosaic tiles that feel remarkably soothing against the soles of your feet. Each tile is a tiny piece of colored marble, forming patterns of sea monsters and geometric waves that seem to ripple under the gentle, pulsing light of the oil lamps hanging from the ceiling. You walk slowly down the corridor, letting the rhythmic tap of your sandals echo softly against the plaster walls. The air inside is thick with the scent of roasted meats, exotic spices like imported cumin and coriander, and the unmistakable sharp tang of garum, the ubiquitous fermented fish sauce that Romans poured onto literally everything, including their desserts. It is a culinary reality that would probably make a modern foodie faint, but here it is the smell of pure luxury. With every step you take, the frantic energy of the modern world slips further away, replaced by the slow, deliberate pace of an era that measured its evenings by the burning down of oil reservoirs and the gradual pooling of melted wax. You are moving deeper into the belly of the villa, ready to face the strict etiquette and peculiar customs of a society that turned hosting dinner into a competitive sport. You step out of the narrow mosaic corridor and into the atrium, the literal heart of the Roman home, and immediately your entire perception of space shifts. This isn't just a living room, it's an architectural statement of power. The roof opens up above you to reveal a rectangular pool of water, the impluvium, which catches the rainwater falling from the sloped ceiling, creating a soft, rhythmic dripping sound that echoes against the marble floors. It's supposed to be tranquil, but honestly, it's mostly just a fancy way to keep the house cool while reminding everyone who visits that you have an advanced plumbing system, and they probably don't. You take a breath, the air here feeling slightly damp and much cooler, perfumed by a mix of blooming jasmine and the faint metallic scent of wet stone. It is a stunning visual, but as you stand there, the social anxiety starts to creep in. You realize that crossing this threshold isn't just about entering a room. It's about successfully navigating a minefield of unspoken social rules, where one wrong move could label you as a provincial bumpkin for the rest of the season. Waiting near the entrance of the atrium is the nomenclator, a slave whose entire job description is essentially to be a human Rolodex. This is a fascinating bit of Roman social engineering that we tend to overlook. The wealthy were so obsessed with their own importance that they couldn't be bothered to remember the names of their guests, so they hired someone else to do it for them. You watch as he approaches another guest, whispering into their ear with the practiced discretion of a high-end spy, likely feeding them the names and backstories of everyone in the room so they can pretend to be old friends with people they've never met. It's a brilliant, if slightly cynical way to manage the ego of the elite. You catch his eye, and for a split second, you wonder if he's already cataloged you, perhaps noting your slightly wrinkled tunic or your uncertain gait, but he simply nods toward the inner sanctum. I mean, imagine having to hire a professional name dropper just to get through a dinner party without accidentally insulting a senator. It really puts your own social awkwardness into perspective, doesn't it? Historians still debate whether the rigid seating arrangements were truly about status, or if they were actually a clever way to keep the guest list manageable in those cramped rooms. But let's be real, it was definitely about status. The further you move toward the triclinium, the dining room, the more you realize that the architecture is designed to make you feel small. The room is dominated by 3 large couches arranged in a U-shape, all facing a central low table. This is the classic Roman dining setup, and if you've ever thought that reclining while eating looks like the height of relaxation, you have clearly never tried to maintain an upright posture while propped up on your left elbow for 4 hours. It's essentially a core workout masquerading as a leisure activity. You're expected to eat with your right hand while balancing your entire body weight on your left arm, a feat of physical coordination that usually ends with a lot of spilled wine and a very stained tunic. If you ever feel like your modern life is physically demanding, just remember that the Romans considered resting to be an athletic endeavor. As you approach the entrance of the dining room, you notice the guests are already beginning to settle, shifting their weight and adjusting their robes with a kind of practiced ease that makes you feel like an amateur. You are starting to notice the subtle power plays happening even before anyone has taken a bite of food. The person reclining on the lectus medius, the middle couch, is clearly the guest of honor, positioned where they can be seen by everyone, but also where they can hold court without straining their neck. The host, meanwhile, takes the lectus imus, the lowest couch, which seems humble but actually places them in the perfect position to monitor the flow of wine and the mood of the room. It's all very strategic, very calculated, and very, very exhausting to think about. You find yourself hoping that anyone, will just tell you where to go so you don't have to guess and end up sitting at the children's table of the ancient world. The lighting in here is intentionally dim, provided by rows of bronze oil lamps that cast a golden, buttery glow over everything. It softens the edges of the room and makes everyone look slightly more attractive than they probably are, a trick that isn't entirely different from the mood lighting used in modern restaurants, though slightly more prone to causing house fires. You can smell the faint underlying scent of lamp oil, a mix of olive oil and something slightly sharper, maybe beeswax, that has been burning for hours. It's a sensory experience that feels deeply intimate, yet you are surrounded by people you don't know, all trying to maintain a veneer of cool detachment. It's a strange paradox. The room is designed for comfort and intimacy, yet the social pressure is so thick you could cut it with a silver serving knife. You realize that tonight isn't just about food, it's about performance. You're an actor in a play, and you haven't even seen the script. You take a slow, steadying breath, trying to match the rhythm of the dripping water from the atrium behind you, and prepare to cross the final threshold into the main event. You have to remind yourself, just smile, nod, keep your right hand free, and for heaven's sake, don't spill the sauce on the host's expensive upholstery. It's all just a game, really, a high-stakes, extremely well-catered game of musical chairs. Now that you have mentally prepared yourself for the architectural theater of the triclinium, you realize you can't just stumble onto the dining couches looking like you just crawled out of a standard merchant's stall. The transition from the public street to the private feast requires a meticulous aesthetic transformation. In the ancient world, looking effortless took an immense amount of behind-the-scenes labor, most of which was handled by a specialized squad of household slaves who treated grooming like a high-stakes military operation. You are led into an adjoining chamber where the air is thick, warm, and heavily scented with the floral sweetness of crushed rose petals and the musky, earthy undertone of imported frankincense. The lighting here is soft, provided by smaller, delicate glass lamps that make these smooth plaster walls glow with a warm amber hue. It is here that you must submit to the Roman rituals of preparation, a process that is equal parts relaxing and slightly absurd to a modern sensibility. First comes the adjustment of your wardrobe, which is far more complicated than simply pulling a t-shirt over your head. You are wearing a synthesis, a special, loose-fitting, colorful tunic designed exclusively for dining, which allows for maximum abdominal expansion during a multi-course feast while still retaining an air of aristocratic elegance. The attendant slaves smooth out the heavy pleats with practiced precision, ensuring that the fabric drapes over your left shoulder in a way that suggests you spend your days studying philosophy rather than worrying about your finances. Remember the bizarre beauty standards of the Roman elite? If you wanted to look truly radiant for a night out, you might have been subjected to face creams containing some wildly questionable ingredients. Historians still debate whether the use of crocodile dung as a skin-brightening foundation was actually a widespread cosmetic practice among the elite, or just a satirical rumor started by cynical poets like Ovid to mock upper-class vanity. Either way, you are profoundly grateful that tonight's attendants are sticking to a safer, simpler blend of crushed almonds, honey, and local olive oil to give your skin a healthy, subtle glow that catches the flickering lamplight just right. As you sit on a low wooden stool, an attendant begins working on your hair, applying a generous amount of scented pomade made from sheep's wool fat, known back then as esipum, which smells a bit like a damp meadow but keeps every single strand perfectly locked in place. In a world before hairspray, this heavy, waxy ointment was the only thing standing between a senator and a total hair disaster mid-conversation. The sensation of the cool oil being massaged into your scalp is deeply relaxing, releasing the lingering tension from your journey through the noisy city streets. You can hear the rhythmic, metallic snip of iron tweezers nearby as another guest undergoes the agonizing process of having their stray hairs plucked, a painful beauty standard that makes your modern grooming routines look like a luxurious day at a spa. It's a vivid reminder that the Romans believed beauty was entirely synonymous with suffering, and to look unkempt was to look uncivilized. Once your hair is sculpted to perfection, your attention is directed down to your feet. Before you can even think about stepping onto the pristine mosaic floors of the dining room, your feet must be thoroughly washed. A slave kneels before you with a polished bronze basin filled with warm water infused with lavender and mint leaves. As you dip your tired feet into the water, the soothing warmth washes over you, melting away the dust of the cobblestones and the residual stress of the day. The servant gently scrubs your skin with a porous piece of volcanic pumice, smoothing out any rough edges before patting your feet dry with a soft linen towel. Finally, you are handed a pair of solier, light, open-topped indoor sandals made of soft, dyed red leather with intricate golden stitching. They feel incredibly comfortable, almost weightless, a stark contrast to the heavy, dust-caked leather boots you wore on the journey over. You stand up, feeling physically lighter and noticeably more aromatic, smelling like a walking herb garden. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the calming properties of the lavender and rose oil soothe your mind. The chaotic energy of the outside world has been completely scrubbed away, replaced by a curated sense of refined luxury. You look down at your spotless tunic, your polished sandals, and your perfectly coiffed hair, realizing that you are finally ready to make your grand entrance. The social anxiety from earlier has begun to soften into a gentle, warm curiosity. You have successfully navigated the gauntlet of Roman preparation, and as you step back into the corridor leading toward the dining hall, you feel a renewed sense of confidence. You are no longer just an observer. You are a fully styled participant in this ancient nightly ritual, ready to see exactly what kind of culinary eccentricities await you at the host's table. You glide out of the grooming chamber, your freshly washed feet sliding effortlessly within your soft red leather soleil. The transition back into the main corridor is marked by a noticeable amplification of sound. The gentle clinking of silver platters, the soft, melodious strumming of a lyre, and the low hum of elite Roman gossip filter out from the triclinium. You pause at the entrance, taking a slow, steady breath to center yourself before stepping into the warm, golden glow of the dining room. The layout of the room is immediately apparent, and it is a masterpiece of psychological design. The three massive couches form an intimate horseshoe around a central table carved from a single piece of dark, swirling citrus wood, a luxury item that probably cost more than a modest country villa. This is the stage where the evening's drama will unfold, and as you stand there, you realize that the simple act of sitting down is about to require a dizzying level of physical coordination. The host catches your eye and gestures toward the lectus imus, the lowest couch, indicating your assigned spot for the night. In the hyper-stratified world of Roman society, where you sat defined who you were, and being placed on the lower couch alongside the host's less politically influential friends is actually a bit of a relief. It means the spotlight isn't entirely on you, allowing you to observe the madness from a safe distance. You approach the couch, which is draped in thick indigo-dyed wool blankets and piled high with cushions stuffed with soft goose down. To get into position, you must climb onto the frame and carefully lower your body onto your left side, propping your upper torso up with your left elbow while leaving your right arm completely free to reach for the food. It feels less like an elegant dining posture and more like an awkward side plank exercise. And within 2 minutes, you can already feel your left shoulder blade politely protesting the arrangement. As you settle into the cushions, trying to find a balance that doesn't result in you immediately rolling off the edge, you look around the room to see how the seasoned professionals handle it. The senior senators on the middle couch look remarkably comfortable, lounging with a relaxed, almost cat-like grace that suggests their core muscles are made of solid marble. Historians still debate whether the Roman elite suffered from chronic back and neck issues due to spending a lifetime eating in this asymmetrical posture, or if the sheer abundance of soft cushions mitigated the physical toll. You watch an elderly man next to you adjust his position with a low groan, shifting a velvet pillow beneath his ribs, which makes you suspect that ancient upper-class life involved a lot more hidden physical discomfort than the statues let on. Imagine having to spend your evening trying to look effortlessly noble while your left arm is slowly going completely numb from poor circulation. Once you are securely wedged between two large tasseled cushions, a young attendant approaches your couch carrying a silver pitcher and a shallow basin. Before a single morsel of food can be touched, your hands must be ritually cleansed once again. The servant pours a stream of cool, scented water over your fingers, the liquid capturing the amber light of the bronze oil lamps as it splashes into the basin. The water is infused with bay leaves and citrus peel, leaving your skin feeling clean, crisp, and slightly tingling. Another attendant steps forward to offer you a small, square linen napkin called a mappa. This isn't just for wiping your mouth. In a fascinating twist of Roman social etiquette, guests were actually expected to bring their own mappa to dinner parties so they could wrap up the luxurious leftovers at the end of the night and carry them home like an ancient doggy bag. To leave a feast without packing up a stash of cold meats and expensive figs was considered a massive insult to the host's generosity. With your hands clean and your left elbow finally finding a semi-stable pocket within the down cushions, you take a moment to absorb the sensory atmosphere of the triclinium. The air is warm, thick with the aroma of roasting meats and the sweet, resinous scent of burning pine wood from the small hearth in the corner. The flickering flames of the oil lamps create a pulsing, hypnotic rhythm against the painted walls, which are decorated with vibrant frescoes of rolling vineyards and playful mythological sea creatures. The frantic pace of your modern life feels incredibly distant now, replaced by the slow, deliberate cadence of a culture that viewed dining not as a chore to be rushed through, but as a multi-hour sensory journey. You rest your right hand lightly on the edge of the citrus wood table, let your weight sink deeper into the embroidered blankets, and watch as the first large silver platters are carried into the room. The soft, rhythmic plucking of the lyre fades into the background as a procession of kitchen servants enters the room, their sandals squeaking faintly against the marble mosaic tiles. They carry massive, polished silver platters that gleam under the warm amber glow of the bronze oil lamps, and as they set the dishes down on the central citrus wood table, a complex wave of aromas fills the air. You might expect a grand feast of roasted meats and rich stews, but the Roman culinary imagination was uniquely eccentric, driven by a desire to shock, amuse, and display wealth through sheer novelty. The first course, known as the gustaccio, is an array of appetizers designed to stimulate the appetite, featuring rows of hard-boiled eggs enclosed in delicate pastry shells, plump green olives preserved in fennel-infused oil, and small bowls of sliced cucumbers drizzled with a thick, syrupy honey glaze. Your eyes are immediately drawn to a centerpiece dish that looks like something out of a whimsical, slightly unsettling fairy tale. Arranged in neat rows on a bed of toasted poppy seeds are dozens of roasted dormice, their skin lacquered to a deep golden brown with a glaze of honey and crushed black pepper. In high society Rome, these little rodents weren't considered pests. They were a prized delicacy, specifically bred in special terracotta jars called gliraria, and fattened up on a steady diet of walnuts and acorns until they reached the optimal plumpness for roasting. You watch the guest next to you reach out with his right hand, casually pluck one of the roasted dormice by its tail, and pop it into his mouth with the same nonchalance you might show in eating a chicken wing at a casual sports bar. It is a striking reminder that what one culture considers a nightmare, another considers the absolute height of culinary sophistication. If the idea of snacking on a forest rodent doesn't quite sit well with your modern stomach, the sauce situation in ancient Rome would probably push you over the edge. Virtually every single dish on the table, from the sweet roasted fruits to the savory meats, is heavily seasoned with garum. This ubiquitous condiment was created by packing the innards of mackerel and anchovies into large clay vats with heaps of salt, then leaving them out in the blistering Mediterranean sun for months until the fish completely liquefied into a clear amber-colored broth. Historians still debate whether the intensive fermentation process of garum actually produced a health-boosting probiotic punch that kept the Roman aristocracy alive, or if it was just a terribly salty way to mask the taste of meat that was slightly past its prime in a world without refrigeration. The result is a pungent, deeply savory umami flavor that hits your palate with a sharp, salty kick before mellowing into a rich, complex finish that lingers on the tongue. As you tentatively pick up a small baked pastry shell filled with spiced sea urchin using your thumb and forefinger, you realize that eating while reclining is an art form that requires total concentration. Since forks haven't been invented yet, and using a knife at the table is considered incredibly bad manners, you have to navigate these saucy, delicate appetizers using only your right hand and an occasional small spoon called a ligula. You lean forward slightly over the edge of your couch, balancing your entire weight on your left elbow while carefully guiding the pastry to your mouth, terrified that a single drop of the dark, fish sauce glaze will ruin the immaculate white wool of your dining tunic. If you ever find yourself complaining about a slightly clumsy restaurant experience in the 21st century, just remember that a Roman patrician had to look like a dignified, noble philosopher while essentially eating a messy, honey-soaked seafood buffet sideways on a couch. Despite the bizarre flavor combinations, like pairing roasted wild boar with a sweet sauce made from boiled grape juice, dried plums, and crushed pine nuts, there is a strange, hypnotic comfort to the rhythm of the meal. The dishes are brought out slowly, giving you ample time to rest between bites, sink deeper into the goose-down pillows, and watch the tiny plumes of scented smoke curl up from the oil lamps toward the painted ceiling. The rich, salty, and sweet flavors mingle on your tongue, creating a heavy, warming sensation in your stomach that begins to diffuse the last remnants of the day's tension. You wipe your fingers on your personal linen mappa, take a slow, deep breath of the warm, spice-laden air, and watch as the servants clear away the empty platters to prepare the room for the arrival of the wine. The empty silver platters of the first course are whisked away with seamless coordination, and a hush falls over the triclinium as the focus of the evening shifts entirely to the ritual of the wine. In ancient Rome, you didn't just pop open a bottle and pour it straight into a cup. That was considered the behavior of lawless barbarians or people with a severe lack of self-control. Wine was a complex, concentrated liquid that required careful, almost alchemical preparation before it was deemed fit for civilized consumption. Servants wheel in a massive, beautifully embossed bronze mixing bowl known as a crater, along with large clay amphora sealed with dark volcanic pitch to preserve the vintage inside. The air instantly fills with a rich, heavy aroma that smells like a mix of fermented dark grapes, aged oak, and a subtle medicinal hint of pine resin. Before a single drop is poured, the guests must perform one of the most entertaining social rituals of the Roman night, electing the rex convivii, or the king of the feast. The host passes around a set of ivory dice, and each guest takes a turn shaking them in a small wooden cup and rolling them across the smooth citrus wood table. Everyone is hoping for the Venus throw, the highest possible combination where all 4 dice land on completely different numbers. You watch the dice tumble across the dark wood with a soft, rhythmic clicking sound, a noise that is incredibly soothing against the quiet background music. The guest next to you lets out a low, satisfied chuckle as his roll reveals the coveted combination, earning him the title for the night. As the king of the feast, it is now his absolute right to dictate exactly how strong the wine will be mixed and how many cups each person at the table is required to drink. This is where Roman drinking habits get truly fascinating. The wine inside the amphora is incredibly thick, sweet, and highly alcoholic, so it must be diluted with water in the large bronze bowl. The Rex Convivia decides on a ratio. Tonight, he opts for a standard, relaxing mixture of 3 parts water to 1 part wine, ensuring that the conversation remains lively and philosophical rather than devolving into a chaotic, drunken brawl. Historians still debate whether the heavy lead lining used in Roman water pipes and cooking vessels subtly altered the taste of their wine mixtures over time, or if the addition of seawater and liquid chalk was simply a creative way to balance out the intense acidity of the grapes. To make the drink even more luxurious for a warm summer night, a servant utilizes a silver strainer filled with packed snow, imported all the way from the distant Apennine Mountains, pouring the dark purple liquid through the ice so it chills instantly as it cascades into your shallow silver drinking cup. An attendant hand delivers the chilled silver cup to your right hand, and as your fingers grip the cool condensation-covered metal, the contrast against the warm air of the room feels incredibly refreshing. You take a slow, cautious sip, letting the flavors wash over your tongue. It tastes entirely unlike modern wine. It is deeply sweet, heavily spiced with infusions of local honey, crushed black pepper, and bay leaves, with a distinct smoky undertone from the resin used to seal the clay jugs. It has a heavy, warming quality that instantly radiates through your chest, relaxing the muscles in your neck and shoulders and causing your eyelids to feel a little heavier. You lean back into your goose-down cushions, watching the amber light of the oil lamps catch the dark, swirling surface of the liquid in your cup, completely surrendered to the slow, intoxicating rhythm of the Roman night. With the chilled, honeyed wine flowing smoothly from the bronze mixing bowl, the atmosphere in the triclinium softens into a state of deep, luxurious relaxation. The initial tension of social posturing has completely melted away under the influence of the sweet, spiced vintages and the heavy warmth of the room. Now comes the entertainment, which, much like the menu, is designed to reflect the host's intellectual pedigree and vast financial resources. You lean back against a giant velvet cushion, your left arm finding a perfectly molded pocket of feathers, and look toward the open center of the room. A young woman steps forward into the golden circle of lamplight, cradling an intricate kithara, a larger, more resonant cousin of the standard lyre. As her fingers glide across the strings, a series of low, vibrating, and hypnotic chords fills the space, bouncing softly off the painted fresco walls. The music isn't loud or jarring, it is repetitive and atmospheric, acting like a gentle sonic background designed to facilitate conversation rather than dominate it. Between the musical interludes, a specialized slave known as an anagnostes steps forward to recite poetry. Tonight, he is reading passages from Virgil's Georgics, his voice dropping into a rhythmic, soothing cadence that describes the peaceful life of country farmers, the humming of bees in the spring warmth, and the heavy scent of ripening orchards. His delivery is incredibly measured, a slow rise and fall of syllables that acts almost like a vocal massage for your tired brain. Historians still debate whether upper-class Romans actually listened intently to these lengthy poetic recitations, or if they simply treated the readers like high-end human white noise machines designed to lull the guests into a comfortable post-dinner daydream. Looking around the room, you see several guests staring blankly at the ceiling with glazed, peaceful expressions, which strongly suggests the white noise theory has a lot of merit. If you think a poetry reading sounds a bit too academic for a Friday night, you have to remember that the Romans viewed intellectual entertainment as the ultimate flex. To pass the time between courses, the host might challenge the guests to a game of ludus duodecim scriptorum, an ancient ancestor of backgammon played on a marble board with small bone markers. The soft, rhythmic clicking of the counters sliding across the stone joins the hum of the lyre, creating a beautifully layered soundscape that is deeply comforting. The conversations around you have shifted from aggressive political maneuvering to lazy, theoretical debates about the nature of the cosmos, or whether a person can truly achieve happiness through a diet consisting entirely of figs. It is a slow, meandering style of communication that doesn't require quick wit or sharp reactions, allowing you to simply nod along and let the words wash over you like a warm wave. Every now and then, a light breeze sweeps through the open atrium, causing the tiny flames of the bronze oil lamps to dance and flicker, shifting the shadows across the beautiful mosaic floor. The scent of burning beeswax and the sweet aroma of the spiced wine hang thick in the air, creating a sensory cocoon that shields you from the reality of the outside world. Your silver cup feels heavy and reassuring in your right hand, the chilled metal slowly warming to the temperature of your skin. You take another tiny, deliberate sip of the sweet liquid, letting the smoky flavor of resin and honey linger on your tongue as you sink an inch deeper into your embroidered blankets. The world beyond these villa walls, with its chaotic politics, its crowded streets, and its endless noise, feels like a distant memory, replaced entirely by the slow, hypnotic, and profoundly peaceful rhythm of this ancient evening gathering. As the rhythmic strumming of the kithara continues to drift through the warm air, the conversation naturally turns to the legendary scandals of the imperial court. It is during these late-night hours, when the wine has softened everyone's defenses, that people love to repeat the wild, sensationalized stories that we modern folks often mistake for everyday Roman reality. You adjust your position on the goose-down cushions, shifting your weight slightly to give your left elbow a well-deserved break, and listen to a guest on the middle couch whisper about the alleged madness of past emperors. We've all heard the rumors. Entire rooms overflowing with rose petals to suffocated guests, or lavish banquets turning into chaotic, unregulated marathons of indulgence. But as you look around this peaceful, highly organized room, you realize just how exaggerated those Hollywood depictions truly are. Historians still debate whether the most scandalous accounts of imperial excess were actually true, or if they were simply political propaganda written by bitter senators after an emperor's death to ruin his historical reputation. When writers like Suetonius or Tacitus wrote about emperors spending millions on a single night's entertainment, they were often using extreme hyperbole to make a moral point about the corruption of absolute power. In reality, even the wealthiest patricians were terrified of looking like they lacked self-control, as moderation, the art of moderation, was considered the ultimate civic virtue. If an elite host actually allowed a party to degenerate into a chaotic, messy brawl, his political career would be effectively over by sunrise. The true Roman party wasn't a wild, lawless free-for-all. It was a carefully managed performance of extreme luxury, masked by a veneer of sophisticated, calm restraint. That isn't to say that the evenings weren't incredibly lavish, but the indulgence was intellectual and culinary rather than chaotic. The goal was to walk a very fine line between showing off your immense wealth and maintaining your dignity as a noble citizen of the Republic or Empire. You take a slow, meditative sip of your chilled, honeyed wine, letting the complex flavors of pine resin and ground pepper settle on your tongue, and appreciate the absolute order of it all. The servants move with a silent clockwork efficiency, never letting a cup stay empty or a crumb remain on the citrus wood table for more than a few moments. It is a highly structured environment that, paradoxically, allows your mind to completely let go of its worries. You don't have to think, you don't have to plan, and you certainly don't have to worry about any sudden dramatic imperial drama breaking out near the mixing bowl. The golden light from the bronze oil lamps pulses softly against the painted fresco walls, casting long, peaceful shadows that seem to sway in time with the gentle evening breeze. The stories of madness and scandal begin to feel like dark bedtime stories told to make the present moment feel even more secure, warm, and comfortable. You watch a small plume of scented smoke curl lazily from a silver incense burner in the corner, its fragrance of sweet myrrh blending with the rich aroma of the wine. The ancient world, with all its chaotic history and larger-than-life characters, is reduced right now to this single, quiet room filled with soft blankets, low music, and the comforting hum of gentle human voices. You let your head rest back against the plush velvet, completely safe from the myths of history, and simply enjoy the serene reality of the Roman night. The whispers of imperial gossip slowly dissolve into the heavy, warm air of the triclinium, replaced once again by the gentle ambient sounds of the Roman night. As you lie cocooned within your down-filled cushions, you begin to perceive the intricate web of social dynamics that governs this entire evening. In this highly stratified world, privacy and visibility exist in a delicate, constant dance. Every gesture, every glance across the central citrus wood table, and even the length of time you hold your silver cup are part of a silent conversation about status and power. Yet, despite this undercurrent of social competition, the overwhelming atmosphere remains deeply peaceful, a testament to the Roman ability to wrap rigid social hierarchies in a veneer of absolute, luxurious comfort. Historians still debate whether the intense pressure to maintain social standing during these dinners actually heightened the guests' anxiety, or if the highly predictable nature of the rituals provided a strange kind of psychological security. As you observe the senator on the middle couch gently nodding his head in time with the kithara, you lean toward the latter theory. There is a profound comfort in knowing exactly what is expected of you at every moment of the night. You don't have to navigate the chaotic unpredictability of modern social interactions. Here, the rules are carved in stone, as clear and reliable as the mosaic patterns beneath your red leather soleil. This predictability allows your mind to slip into a state of calm detachment, observing the social play without feeling the need to aggressively participate in it. The concept of privacy during a Roman feast was also entirely different from our modern understanding. You are surrounded by household servants who move through the room like silent ghosts, anticipating your every need before you even realize it yourself. A cup is refilled, a stray crumb is swept away, a cushion is adjusted, all without a single word being exchanged. This lack of physical boundaries might feel intrusive in a modern setting, but here it creates a seamless cocoon of care that strips away the basic chores of existence. You are completely taken care of, allowing you to sink deeper into the embroidered blankets and let your analytical mind go completely offline for the night. A soft draft sweeps through the open atrium, causing the large purple drapes at the entrance of the dining room to billow lazily, like the sails of a ship moving through a calm evening sea. The golden light from the bronze lamps shifts across the room, illuminating the intricate details of the wall frescoes, a painted grapevine heavy with fruit, a sleepy river god reclining on a bed of reeds. You take a slow, rhythmic breath, letting the steady hum of low voices and the repetitive chords of the stringed instrument anchor you in the present moment. The social world outside these walls, with its endless noise and frantic pacing, feels completely irrelevant. Inside this sanctuary of light and shadow, the only task required of you is to exist, to relax, and to let the ancient night carry you forward. The subtle social chess match across the citrus wood table begins to slow down as the night deepens, transitioning the room into a phase dedicated purely to tactile comfort and physical rejuvenation. In the Roman world, wellness wasn't a separate activity you scheduled at a gym. It was an integral part of a long evening spent at a luxury villa. You feel a gentle shift in the room's energy as a new set of attendants enters, carrying shallow terracotta bowls filled with warm, thick oils. The air is immediately overtaken by the rich, soothing scent of green olives pressed with crushed laurel leaves and sweet marjoram. This marks the transition to the late-night relaxation rituals, an ancient practice that makes your modern wellness apps look incredibly cold and uninspired. An attendant kneels beside your couch, offering a gentle nod before starting a localized massage on your forearm and hand, using the warm herbal oil to soothe the muscles that have been holding up your silver drinking cup all night. The smooth, rhythmic pressure of their hands is intensely grounding, melting away the residual tension in your fingers and wrist. Historians still debate whether the Roman elite's obsession with daily oil massages and thermal treatments was actually a legitimate medical response to the physical strain of sitting on hard stone benches all day, or if it was simply an excuse to indulge in uninterrupted sensory pampering. You remember the bizarre cosmetics we talked about earlier, like the infamous crocodile dung foundation, and you are incredibly relieved to see that tonight's oils are entirely plant-based and wonderfully fragrant. The warm oil forms a protective, silky barrier on your skin, catching the amber glow of the flickering bronze lamps and making you feel thoroughly insulated from the outside world. This indulgence mirrors the elaborate daily routines of the Roman baths, or thermae, where patricians would spend hours moving between rooms of varying temperatures, from the steaming heat of the calidarium to the bracing chill of the frigidarium, all while being scraped clean with curved iron tools called strigils. It was a lifestyle completely centered around the physical experience of comfort, turning the maintenance of the human body into a leisurely art form. As the attendant wraps your hand in a warm, dry linen cloth to let the oil absorb, you feel a profound wave of heaviness settle deep into your bones. The constant, frantic urge to be productive that follows you around in the modern 21st century has no power here. In this room, the simple act of relaxing your muscles and breathing in the scent of crushed laurel is considered a completely valid use of your time. You let your head sink back into the goose-down pillows, watching the tiny, lazy plumes of smoke drift up from the incense burners toward the painted ceiling. The music from the kithara has slowed down even further, the musician now plucking single vibrating notes that hang in the warm air for several seconds before gently dissolving into the quiet dark. Your entire body feels heavy, warm, and perfectly aligned with the slow, ancient cadence of the house. The world beyond these thick brick walls is fast asleep, and inside this golden sanctuary, you are being cradled by a tradition of hospitality that has been perfected over centuries. You close your eyes for a brief moment, letting the soothing rhythm of the low voices and the scent of sweet marjoram wash over you, completely surrendered to the luxurious peace of the Roman evening. As the soothing warmth of the herbal oils settles into your skin, a distinct shift occurs in the ambient lighting of the triclinium. The heavy oil reservoirs in the bronze lamps are burning low, causing the golden flames to pulse with a slower, more rhythmic heartbeat. In this dim amber twilight, your attention is drawn to a small, intricate object resting against your collarbone, a protective silver amulet known as a bulla or a fascinum, which was slipped around your neck during the evening's preparations. In ancient Rome, the deep dark of the night wasn't just a time for sleep. It was a mystical landscape filled with invisible forces, wandering spirits, and the unpredictable whims of fortune. Superstition wasn't considered a fringe belief for the uneducated. It was an essential, everyday survival mechanic practiced by emperors, generals, and wealthy patricians alike. Historians still debate whether the Romans' profound reliance on protective charms and daily omens actually heightened their baseline paranoia about the unknown, or if these small rituals provided a comforting psychological anchor in a world without modern science. Looking around the dimly lit room, you can see how the flickering shadows cast by the dying lamps might easily transform a heavy purple curtain into a looming phantom. To combat this late-night vulnerability, the host has strategically placed small bronze figurines of the Lares, the benevolent household gods, near the entrance of the dining room, their tiny polished surfaces catching the last glints of light. There is an undeniable comfort in this ancient mindset. Instead of worrying about abstract modern anxieties like economic inflation or digital privacy, your responsibilities are beautifully simplified. You simply trust in the protective power of your silver amulet and let the household gods guard the perimeter while you rest. You reach up with your right hand, your fingers brushing against the cool, smooth metal of the charm, and find its weight surprisingly reassuring against your chest. You remember the strange cosmetic ingredients we discussed earlier, like the waxy essapum derived from sheep's wool fat that is currently keeping your hair perfectly sculpted, and you realize that every element of this night is designed to form a barrier between you and the chaotic forces of the outside world. The amulet isn't just a piece of jewelry, it is a physical manifestation of peace of mind. As you let your hand drop back onto the soft indigo wool of your blanket, you hear the distant, muffled hoot of an owl echoing over the villa's terracotta roof tiles. In the Roman world, the cry of an owl could be interpreted as a grave omen, but nestled here within the thick, secure walls of the patrician estate, the sound feels incredibly distant, stripped of its power to disturb your calm. The air in the room has grown slightly cooler now, carrying the crisp, clean scent of the midnight dew rising from the stone courtyard outside. The rich, savory aromas of the garum-infused appetizers and the sweet, resinous notes of the honeyed wine have completely faded, leaving behind only the clean, grounding smell of burning cedar wood and local olive oil. You take a slow, deep breath, letting the steady rise and fall of your chest sync with the lazy, fading pulse of the bronze lamps. The modern world, with its relentless, unforgiving clocks and endless digital alerts, feels like an alternate reality that has no business existing in this timeless space. You allow your eyelids to drop a fraction lower, completely insulated by the protective rituals of the ancient night, and prepare your mind for the final, gentle descent of the evening. The final embers of the small hearth in the corner glow with a soft, deep crimson, casting a warm, minimalist radiance across the room. The large bronze mixing bowl, which held the sweet spiced wine earlier, stands quiet and reflective on the central table. The evening has reached that pristine, silent hour where the boundary between waking thoughts and restful dreams begins to blur into a beautiful, hazy fog. Servants move through the room with an almost supernatural stillness, their bare feet making absolutely no sound on the cool mosaic tiles as they use long brass snuffers to gently extinguish the highest oil lamps. One by one, the bright golden points of light disappear, leaving behind small, elegant ribbons of fragrant white smoke that drift lazily through the warm air before vanishing into the darkness of the high rafters. You shift your weight a final time, letting your body sink completely into the deep, welcoming hollow of the goose-down pillows. Your left arm is no longer required to support your torso. The rigid etiquette of the early evening has dissolved entirely, allowing you to recline flat against the embroidered indigo blankets like a weary traveler who has finally reached their destination. Historians still debate whether these elite late-night wind downs were intentionally designed to induce a state of meditative tranquility, or if the sheer combination of watered wine, heavy wool, and rhythmic music naturally acted as an ancient sedative. As you feel the profound weight of relaxation settling into your limbs, you know the answer doesn't matter. The physical reality of your current comfort is absolute. The musician playing the kithara has long since departed, leaving the triclinium wrapped in a profound, velvety quiet that is rarely found in the modern world. The only remaining sound is the faint, rhythmic dripping of the rainwater pool out in the central atrium, a steady, aquatic metronome that echoes softly through the long plaster corridors. It is a sound that feels deeply elemental, grounding your mind and sweeping away any lingering thoughts of the day's social performance. You take a slow, deep breath, inhaling the faint, calming scent of local lavender and dried bay leaves that still clings to your freshly washed skin from the grooming rituals. The world is narrowing down to the space beneath your heavy wool blanket, a safe, secure sanctuary where the frantic pacing of the 21st century has been completely replaced by the timeless, slow rotation of the stars above the Roman sky. You slowly slide your legs off the edge of the plush dining couch, your feet instantly finding the familiar, comforting embrace of your red leather solier. Standing up after hours of lounging feels like waking from a long, warm midday nap. Your limbs are heavy, loose, and completely drained of the modern tension you carried across the threshold earlier. The host meets your gaze from across the dim room, offering a silent, appreciative nod of farewell that requires no exhausting verbal pleasantries. You slip your linen mappa under your arm, now safely holding a few sweet dried figs and a piece of spiced pastry for later, and walk quietly out of the triclinium. The air in the central atrium has turned crisp and cool, the water in the impluvium perfectly still now, reflecting a clear midnight sky framed by the square opening in the roof. Stepping back out through the heavy oak doors of the villa, the ancient city welcomes you into its quiet, nocturnal embrace. The narrow alleys that were so chaotic and loud during the day are now completely transformed, wrapped in a peaceful, shadowy stillness that feels almost sacred. There are no bright streetlights or flashing digital signs here. The only illumination comes from the silver glow of the moon riding high over the massive stone arches of the distant aqueducts. Historians still debate whether the total absence of public street lighting in ancient Rome made the night feel terrifyingly dangerous to the average citizen, or if the wealthy simply viewed the darkness as a serene canvas for their late-night strolls back to their private estates. Moving through the cobblestone streets with a small escort of torch-bearing servants, you feel entirely secure, insulated by the heavy silence of an empire at rest. The sounds of the midnight city are sparse and deeply soothing. You hear the occasional distant echo of a night watchman's iron-shod boots stepping rhythmically against the stone paving, a comforting reminder that the city is being watched over while its inhabitants sleep. The smell of the open drains has faded into the background, overtaken by the clean, sharp scent of wet limestone, cooling brick, and the faint, sweet aroma of pine trees drifting down from the nearby hills. With every slow, deliberate step you take, the heavy wool of your dinner tunic sways against your shins, its steady rhythm acting like a gentle pendulum that anchors your mind in the present moment. You are no longer rushing toward a deadline or checking a clock. You are simply moving in harmony with the natural, unhurried pace of the ancient Mediterranean night. As you turn a corner onto a wider avenue, you catch a glimpse of the Forum down below, its grand marble columns standing like silent white sentinels against the deep velvet sky. The bustling heart of Roman politics and commerce is completely deserted, stripped of its noise, and reduced to a beautiful, classical landscape of light and shadow. You take a slow, deep breath of the cool night air, letting the absolute stillness of the scene wash over your mind. The worries of your modern life feel completely insignificant when viewed against the backdrop of these enduring stone monuments that have witnessed the passage of centuries. You continue your journey toward your sleeping quarters, your body warmed by the lingering effects of the honeyed wine, ready to fully surrender to the deep, dreamless sleep that awaits you. Your sandals click softly one last time against the cool limestone steps of your sleeping quarters, a sound that quickly dissolves into the deep, welcoming silence of your private room. You step through the heavy wooden door, leaving the midnight streets of Rome completely behind you. The air inside is still, cool, and beautifully fragrant, carrying a lingering trace of the sweet lavender water from your earlier preparations and the clean, grounding scent of fresh linen. A single clay lamp sits on a small bronze tripod in the corner, its tiny flame pulsing with a slow, hypnotic rhythm that casts long, fluid shadows across the smooth plaster walls. There are no mirrors here, no digital clocks glowing in the dark, and no electronic devices waiting to pull your mind back into the frantic current of the modern world. The room is a perfect, minimalist sanctuary designed for nothing but absolute rest. You reach up and gently loosen the silver amulet from around your neck, placing it softly onto the wooden table beside your bed with a tiny metallic chime. You slide your feet out of the red leather sandals, letting the soles of your feet rest against the smooth, remarkably soothing terracotta floor tiles before you climb onto the high mattress. The bed is draped in layers of soft, unbleached linen and topped with a heavy quilt of dark, indigo-dyed wool that smells faintly of the sun-drenched hills of the Italian countryside. As you lower your body down, your head sinking deep into a firm pillow stuffed with dried beach grass and chamomile flowers, you can feel the last remaining tension completely drain from your muscles. Your left arm, which supported you through the elaborate choreography of the patrician feast, finally relaxes completely, sinking into the soft mattress as you stretch out your limbs. Historians still debate whether the ancient Romans truly understood the psychological importance of a dedicated, distraction-free sleep environment, or if their lack of evening illumination simply forced them to line their bodies with the natural rhythms of the earth. Lying here in the velvety dark, you realize that the answer doesn't matter. The peace you feel right now is absolute, a timeless tranquility that bridges the gap between the ancient past and the present moment. The bustling empire, the strategic political debates of the triclinium, the exotic taste of the honeyed wine, and the wild myths of the imperial court all begin to soften and recede into the background of your mind, turning into distant, hazy images that float away like smoke from an extinguished torch. The small flame of your clay lamp flickers a final time, its oil reservoir running empty, gently plunging the room into a deep, velvety darkness. The only sound left in the world is the slow, steady rhythm of your own breathing, matching the timeless cadence of the wind rustling through the distant olive groves outside your window. The boundaries of the room seem to expand, blending seamlessly with the quiet, starlit sky that hangs over the eternal city. You are completely safe, entirely warm, and thoroughly insulated from the worries of any century. The ancient world has done its job, wrapping you in its complex rituals of hospitality before gently releasing you into the quiet embrace of the night. You let your thoughts go completely blank, surrendering to the heavy, comforting dark, and allow yourself to drift away into a deep, dreamless slumber. Open quote, close quote, close quote.